The eyes which do not look at the symbolic representations of the personality of Godhead Viṣṇu, his forms, name, quality, etc., are like those printed on the plumes of the peacock, and the legs which do not move to the holy places where the Lord is remembered are considered to be like the tree trunks. Purport. Especially for householder devotees, the path of deity worship is strongly recommended. As far as possible, every householder, by the direction of the spiritual master, must install the deity of Viṣṇu, forms like Radha Krishna, Lakshmi Narayan, or Sita Ram especially, or any other form of the Lord, like Nrsimha, Varaha, Varnitai, Matsya, Kurma, Shalagram Shila, and many other forms of Viṣṇu, like Trivikram, Keshava, Achyuta, Vasudeva, Narayana, and Damodar, and as recommended in the Vaishnava Tantras or Puranas. And one's family should worship strictly according to the directions and regulations of Archana Vidhi. Any member of the family who is above 12 years of age should be initiated by a bona fide spiritual master, and all the members of the household should be engaged in the daily worship of the Lord, beginning from morning 4 a.m. till night 10 p.m. By performing Mangal Arti, Niranjana, Archana, Puja, Kirtan, Shringhara, Bhoga, Vaikali, Sandhya Arti, Pata, Bhoga at night, Shayana Arti, etc. So, we see here that one should not be initiated before the age of 12, because by then, I think we can remember ourselves, you're starting to get some independence, and you can think for yourself. Before that, it's just a formality. So Srila Prabhupada is giving some directions here. It should be free volition to take initiation. And then he's saying that one should be engaged in the service of the Lord from the very moment he wakes up at 4 a.m. till he goes to sleep at night at 10 p.m. So in the next slide, we're just taking a little break from the purport, because I had a discussion about this with Pushkar Prabhu. I was trying to figure out what all of these Sanskrit terms are. So if you can see on the chart here, we've got Mangal Artik. Okay, that's easy. 4:30 a.m., first Artik of the day. Niranjana was a little bit more difficult for me. So if you can remember at the end of class, if anybody wants to interject with what they think this is, because Anjana is like ointment on the eyes. So one of the other meanings is a dressing. So I was figuring maybe it refers to undressing the deities, or maybe bathing the deities. Well, we really couldn't figure it out. But anyway, Niranjana, then Archana. I think Archana, Puja, and Kirtan are more general terms for deity worship in general, for artiks, for puja, and then just kirtan in general. That's what I believe Srila Prabhupada was saying. And then the rest of these are, for the most part, I believe, artiks. So there's Shringar artik, the mid-morning artik. Bhoga is noon artik. Sandhya is, I believe, the 4 p.m. artik in the mid-afternoon. And then we have Pata. Pushkar pointed out that when it's a long A, Pata, that refers to studying the Shastras. Just like the duties of a Brahmana is Patan Patan, teaching the Vedic literature, studying and teaching Vedic literatures. And then we have Bhoga, so that must be Bhoga Artik or Sandhya Artik. I'll misspell that. Or the Sundar Artik. Anyway, 6 o'clock Artik. And then Shayana Artik must be the last Artik of the day. So anyway, that's my interpretation. If somebody can come up with something different, great. Okay, continuing with Srila Prabhupada's purport. Engagement in such worship of the deity under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master will greatly help the householders to purify their very existence and make rapid progress in spiritual knowledge. That's pretty amazing. Let's read that one more time. Engagement in such worship of the deity under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master will greatly help the householder to purify their existence and make rapid progress in spiritual knowledge. Simply theoretical book knowledge is not sufficient for a neophyte devotee. Book knowledge is theoretical, whereas archana process is practical. Spiritual knowledge must be developed by a combination of theoretical and practical knowledge, and that is the guaranteed way for attainment of spiritual perfection. The training and devotional service for the neophyte completely depends on the expert spiritual master who knows how to lead his disciple to make gradual progress towards the path back home, back to Godhead. One should not become a pseudo-spiritual master as a matter of business to meet one's family expenditures. One must be an expert spiritual master to deliver the disciple from the clutches of impending death. So, after we're done with this purport, we're going to read the glories of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. How great his spiritual master he was. But Srila Prabhupada is making the point here that it's just not a matter of theoretical knowledge. One must practically engage in the service of the Lord. And that service begins from the archana process, from hearing, chanting, and then worshiping the Lord. Excuse me. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has defined the bona fide qualities of the spiritual master. And one of the verses in that description reads, Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shringaratan Mandira Marjanada Yuktasya Bhaktam Chani Chunjatopi Bande Guru Shri Charanarvindam. Shri Vigrahara is the archa, or suitable worshipful form of the Lord, and the disciple should be engaged in worshiping the deity regularly by Shringara, by proper decoration and dressing, as also by Mandira Marjana, the matter of cleansing the temple. I think Shringara means shining, so shining, dress, everything shining, and Marjana, cleaning the temple, the mandir. The spiritual master teaches the neophyte devotee all these kindly and personally to help him gradually in the realization of the transcendental quality, form, etc. of the Lord. Only attention engaged in the service of the Lord, especially in dressing and decorating the temple, accompanied by musical kirtan and spiritual instructions from scriptures, can save the common man from the hellish cinema attractions and rubbish sex songs broadcast everywhere by radios. If one is unable to maintain a temple at home, he should go to another's temple where all the above performances are regularly executed. Visiting the temple of a devotee and looking at the profusely decorated forms of the Lord, well dressed in a well-decorated, sanctified temple, naturally infuse the mundane mind with spiritual inspiration. People should visit holy places like Vrindavan, where such temples and worship of the deity are specifically maintained. So we have experience when we go out to stores or just driving on the road and see billboards, or what to speak of media. We are accosted at every moment by sexually explicit advertisements, and they will agitate the mind. So, on the other hand, if one absorbs himself in seeing the beautiful form of the deity and isn't engaged in all of his senses in the archana process, then he can be relieved from this accosting of the senses. So, and what to speak of the internet? There, that's the next thing. And all over the internet, everyone wants to advertising, especially. So, deity worship is there. So, formerly, all rich men, like kings and rich merchants, constructed such temples under the direction of expert devotees of the Lord, like the 6 Goswamis, and it is the duty of the common man to take advantage of these temples and festivals observed in the holy places of pilgrimage by following in the footsteps of great devotees, Anubraja. So, we remember from the word for word to follow, anu raja. So Srila Prabhupada is pointing out that this refers to following the footsteps of great devotees of the Lord. This is also something I asked Pushkar about. He pointed out that, like, for instance, the Bhagavad Gita, it says, Sharanam Raja. If one surrenders to me, he comes to me, or he goes to me. So Anu Raja means to follow in the footsteps of devotees and that follow on the heels of the Lord, which would also be something that we're going to read very shortly from the conversation of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta has with one scholar. So one should not visit all these sanctified places of pilgrimage and temples with sightseeing in mind, but one must go to such temples and sanctified places immortalized by the transcendental pastimes of the Lord and be guided by proper men who know the science. This is called Anu Vraja. Anu means to follow. It is therefore best to follow the instruction of the bona fide spiritual master, even in visiting temples and holy places of pilgrimage. One who does not move. In that way, is as good as a standing tree condemned by the Lord not to move. The moving tendency of the human being is misused by visiting places for sightseeing. The best purpose for such traveling tendencies could be fulfilled by visiting the holy places established by great acharyas, and thereby not being misled by the atheistic propaganda of money-making men who have no knowledge of spiritual matters. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So especially in that last part, so Srila is pointing out that the leading men, which in the Kali Yuga are people with money and power, they are leading the entire society for hell, and they utilize such things as sexually explicit advertisements in order to entice people. So the great acharyas, they guide the neophyte devotees closer to the Lord by instructing them how to perform deity worship and how to go to places of pilgrimage, or not to sightsee, but rather to hear about the pastimes and the glories of the Lord. Otherwise, if we don't go to places of pilgrimage, our legs are just as good as trees who also have one leg, and that leg is cursed because it cannot go anywhere. So as the principle behind this verse, as far as I can see, is that one is being recommended here by Shukadeva Goswami that, this is still the Sages in Amritsar, I believe. Forgot anywhere where we are. That one should worship the Lord in his own home, the deity form of the Lord, become attracted to the Lord, engage all of the senses. And if not in his own home, then go to the temple of the Lord and worship there. Holy places of pilgrimage in the temple. Otherwise, our eyes, our power of seeing is no better than the plumes that are printed on a peacock's feather, and our legs are no better than that of the tree. So today is the appearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. We wanted to speak about his glories. Specifically, there's a conversation that he had in 1929 with Professor Shutters. Is that right? Shutters? Yeah, Shutters. From the University of Ohio. And in that conversation, it was a 3-day conversation, so they covered quite a bit. But what I'm going to try to go through, because it's quite elaborate, is specifically his dissertation, brilliant talk with him about what is worship to the Lord in all of his different forms. So you'll see in the beginning of the conversation some very challenging questions, and by the end of the dialogue, he is just absolutely amazed and very submissive and appreciative of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. It's such a change. I did a little research on this Professor Shutters. He was, Sutures, excuse me, I mispronounced it, Sutures. He was from a Methodist background and was a scholar who was trained at the Union Theological College in New York. He was a professor of comparative religions in Delaware, Ohio, Wesleyan University and Ohio State University. So it's said that Professor Suters, I'm nervous, Suters, thank you, was born in Bombay, doing research for his course in comparative religions at Ohio State University. In January of 1929, he went to Calcutta to meet Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's Saraswati, who was at that time in Krishnanagar. The professor heard from him for 3 days consecutively. I don't know if we're going to get through everything, but I wanted to just give a summary of how the conversation began. Dr. Sutures was asking questions about idol worship, about how there's immorality within Hinduism or Vaishnavism specifically. He was saying he was a scholar, and that in Vaishnavism we worship animals, or God in the form of animals. So he was making the point that worship of idols encourages obscenity, because there's carvings of all kinds of sex on the engravings of Hindu temples, and that how in the world we can reconcile that Vaishnavism can compare to Christianity, because of his Methodist upbringing, when Krishna is described as having amorous pastimes, and that how we can worship deities that are represented as a fish, a tortoise, a boar, etc. How can any civilized humanity accept such things unless they're allegorical? So these were his beginning questions, and by the end, he was thoroughly impressed, very submissive, appreciative of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and ended it with very sincere praise. If I could just summarize this, first he said that after some time, after the first few explanations, he said, "I have just listened to many subtle truths in the science and philosophy of religion." Remember, he was a religionist himself, comparative religions. "Please tell me, let me have a conception of these intricate matters." And then later on he said, "I am able to feel the super excellence of the Vaishnava philosophy among the Indian, all other Indian philosophies." Toward the end he said, "I have truly been astonished to hear from Your Holiness these mysteries of Vaishnava philosophy and their scientific analysis with the most reasonable arguments. I could not even think before that there are in the Vaishnava philosophy such excellent solution, corroboration, and elucidation of the problems of Indian philosophy." And lastly, at the end he said, "I do not know how fortunate I am to have met Your Holiness and got spiritually enlightened in this matter." So quite a change from where he started. So we will begin, and I'm going to interject with whatever I understand about this conversation. If you could try and hear with rapt attention, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta doesn't speak in a very simple way. He's speaking to a scholar here, so it's quite impressive. It takes some really ardent hearing. So the first question was, did the worshippers of Krishna encourage the obscenity of the engravings of many Hindu temples? Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says, those who are actually worshippers of Krishna are never in favor of indecencies. All decency and morality only are entirely confined to the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. The highest sense of morality of the unadulterated soul consists of its love towards the supersoul, the oversoul, and the culmination of this pure love is found only in the devotees of Krishna. The best of moral rules, as preached by the noble Jesus, do not come anywhere near the principles of amorous love of the devotees of Krishna for service thereof. So, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is saying, and I'll say in my own simple way, that all morality is reposed in the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, and whatever Jesus taught cannot even be compared to the devotion of the lovers of Krishna, because with them is all morality, since they're giving everything to the Lord. So then the professor says, Your Holiness seems to have taken a biased view in saying that the good moral precepts of Christ come nowhere near the morality of amorous love of the devotees of Krishna. You can just imagine for an outsider to hear such a statement, how you could not understand. So this is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's answer. Certainly not. We claim to be greater and better Christians than Westerners. Our judgment is not restricted only to secular morality. The morality of the object of spiritual love transcends the supernatural morality, which again surpasses secular morality. So again, at the end of class, anybody can correct me for what I understand from this, is that secular morality means like a code of conduct within our modern civilized society, more or less a mode of passion, or like a morality of convenience. Whereas supernatural morality would be godly qualities, God, of the demigods, or the principles of morality that you would find in someone of the stature of Maharaj Yudhisthira. Whereas spiritual love is something that is found in the inhabitants of Vrindavan, and the topmost of that, the love exhibited by the gopis of Vrindavan. So, if Christian morality is perfected thereby, then it may be said to receive proper nourishment. Because, Lord Jesus, he was talking to a certain class of men, so he taught basic moral principles. Don't steal, don't kill your neighbors, etc. To a pure soul that remains situated on that transcendental moral plane of love, the secular moralities appear reduced to the smallest of pygmies. But there is not found any feeling of apathy nor attachment towards these secular moralities. So what I understand for that is not that a saintly person is apathetic, or he has, or one who is on the highest perfection of love of Godhead. It's not that he's apathetic or he has attachment to be a moral person, but rather his morality is enhanced by his overriding love for the Lord. So on the other hand, all moralities wait like maids behind the spiritual moralities to become glorified, being permitted to serve the Lord of transcendental love. So whatever so-called morality we have in this world, the devotee surrenders everything to the Lord, so therefore he is by nature the most moral, even in a mundane sense, of anyone in this world. But it is subservient to the topmost spiritual love. So the character of the culturist of spiritual love is never devoid of morality. One hostile to morality, or fallen from it, can never be a spiritual man. In the blaze of the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Dev's ideal, it has not propagated that dissolutionness is not devotion. Okay, so dissolutionist is not devotion, what I understand of that. We're talking about the Mayavad philosophy of everything is void, so therefore there is no emotions. There's no devotion when one becomes realized. So, but in contrast, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta uses this word, the blaze of the teachings of Sri Chaitanya's love of Godhead, that we can see. So it says it's palpable evidence is found when we reflect on the character of Sri Chaitanya Dev or the followers at his heel. The people of the realm of the secular morality concerned with the worldly enjoyments and their renunciation will not be able to grasp in their tiniest brains how fostered by the climax of morality and how adored by the highest degree of all the morality of the universe are the amorous sports of Krishna, so much glorified by the noble clan of such high personages as strictly continent character as the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Dev, like Sri Rupa, Sri Sanatan, Sri Raghunath Das, Sri Raghunath Bhatta, Sri Gopal Bhatta, etc. This is amazing. Can you imagine anyone speaking like this? One of the qualities of a devotee is he's a kavi, he's a poet. It's difficult to imagine anyone writing like this would to speak of speaking in dialogue to someone like this. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is making the point that the personages of the six Goswamis of Vrindavan, they have the strictest continent character. In other words, they have impeachable character that no one can question, and they are glorifying the amorous sports of Krishna. So that is the highest morality of all the universe, what they have described about the character of the gopis and the inhabitants of Vrindavan. So, next question is, how can Your Holiness' statement be reconciled with the descriptions that are found about Krishna's amorous sports? So, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta answers that Krishna's amorous sports are not temporal like the lustful sports of dramatic heroes and heroines like Romeo and Juliet, even ideal spouses. Lust, as prevalent in this world, is only a mental passion, but the lust of the transcendental region of Krishna has its own form. Here lust is always goaded by the enemy, one of the six passions, where in the transcendental region of Krishna, the loveliness of the spiritual body of Krishna ever drives the lust for Krishna, which takes form as sublimated love, or the desire to gratify the immaculate senses of Krishna. So, oops, I went too far. So, I'm hoping everybody's following along because it's very intense reading that might help to read along, and I also have some other slides that help visually to understand some of the things that are being said here. So when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is saying that, we have stories, romantic poems, like Romeo and Juliet, or even you think about the highest principles and maybe like religion, to have absolute faith in your spouse. This is all has to do with mundane lust, which is goaded by the enemy, or the six passions. So as far as I understand what the six passions are, in the 5th canto, chapter 1, text 35, it describes the six material whips, which are hunger, thirst, lamentation, illusion, old age, and death. So these are what we're trying to get away from. I was just in a store yesterday, walked into Walmart, and I have strong realization. You know why people go shopping? One of the reasons is that we're trying to get out of the miseries of this world. We're all looking for comforts because this body inherently is full of misery and needs comforts in order to survive. So people are attracted to go to stores and shop for things because we're trying to make this body comfortable, which is inherently full of discomfort. So we have 6 whips: hunger, thirst, lamentation, illusion, old age, and death. We're trying to get out of these things, and if we find another person that will help us to satisfy some of these things that we're being harassed by at every moment, then we want them. But the transcendental personage of Krishna, it drives our lust for Krishna, which is sublimated love, which means that we simply want to gratify the transcendental or immaculate senses of the personality of Godhead, who has no touch of material contamination. So the conductor of the worldly lust is the enemy, passion, and the conductor of love is Krishna. It is the amorous sports of Krishna that have appropriateness, but there is no such consistency in the lust born of the body and mind of the jiva. Krishna's amorous sports are not to be called indecency, because it is Krishna who is the only one unrivaled enjoyer, embodiment of the real truth, and the spiritual despot. Yes, so would anyone have a problem if a married man expects to enjoy his wife? He maintains her. That is morality in this world. So that is a little reflection of the supreme enjoyer that owns everything. That's a source of everything. He is a supreme despot. No one can equal or surpass him. So therefore, the supreme morality is to serve and to love him. Now, Professor Suter, is that? Suter? Okay. Says, I cannot fully appreciate this. Please let me understand a little more clearly. So, suppose there is some angles. Now, I'm going to actually switch. Okay, so if you could look at this. Here we have different angles. Listen to this brilliant analogy. Suppose there are some angles, 2 right angles, 4 right angles, etc. There is the contracted character of a corner in the acute, obtuse, and right angle. But in the 2 right angles called the straight angle, even though called an angle, there is no contractedness or want of straightness, as in the case with angles in general. Such is the case with the autocrat, Krishna. There is no want or contractedness or despicable character or indecency in the perfect entity Krishna, like a circle of 360 degrees. Though the communities of enjoyers or renouncers championing morality or immorality may, due to meagerness in their intellect, wrongly regard the lustfulness of Krishna, the result of his despotism, anyway, being a despotism, which is only his, as vulgar like that of common men and other creatures. So here you see what he's talking about. You've got, if you have 2 right angles together, then it's a straight line, or just like he says, just like a circle. There is no crookedness, whereas you will find in angles in general, so our lust in this world is full of crookedness. But in the Supreme Despot, in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there's no immorality, there's no crookedness. He's completely smooth, straight, impeccable, not touched by immorality. So, another question. In the scriptures of India, adorable deities have been represented as creatures of the lower creation, like fish, tortoise, boar, etc. Is this approved by the sense of decency of civilized humanity? Some again are in favor of supporting such representations as allegorical symbols. So this now is going to get more into the subject of today's verse about worshiping the deity form of the Lord. So, I'm just checking the time. Okay. Imagination does not find a place in Vaishnava philosophy. In it, or in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the highest scripture for all men in the universe, has been described the topmost ontology about God, millions times better than what the most civilized races of humanity, 5,000 years old, nay, as old as several millions of eras, can conceive of even in their imagination. The eternal transcendental forms of God that descend or are manifested according to the gradual evolution of the aptitude for offering service by the totally purified soul, quite aloof from the regions of the body and mind, when man becomes the worshipper of the ultimate reality at the loftiest stage of civilization, are never the idols of imagination or allegories, like the unreal things manufactured in the mental factory of man, or like the imaginary animal deities of the barbarians, such as the tiger god, serpent god, horse god, etc. Can you imagine having such a clear trend of thought to even speak this? This is amazing. How Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is presenting the super excellent philosophy that is given within the Srimad Bhagavatam, that there is no such imagination. And this is interesting here, that he's going to cover this in later on, that according to the aptitude of the worshipper, the Lord appears in different forms. And even the loftiest of civilizations can never even imagine to what heights this worship of the Lord is. So here we have a little bit of visual to try and understand, because this is pretty heavy knowledge that he's going to be presenting. So I thought some pictures might help. So then he continues, the worship of Viṣṇu incarnations like fish, turtle, etc. is not fabrication of imagination like that of one of the 5 deities of the heathenists formed out of imagination, based on the coinage of set speeches like the imaginary conception of the forms of Brahman, as in the Panchadasi of the monistic school. So Panchadasi, what I looked up on the Wikipedia, is it's a book written by one of the chief followers of Shankaracharya, and it delineates the teachings of the Mayavad understanding of Vedanta. So Panchapachana, is that right to say? Panchapachana, I believe so, that's the correct term. It's described that one can worship any form of the Lord because the Lord is actually a production of Maya. So there are 5 chief deities. I didn't look it up, but I'm pretty sure it's Lord Viṣṇu, Lord Shiva, Surya, Ganesh, and I believe Lord Brahma. Maybe there's other, but it doesn't matter, because they say that you can worship any deity, because that the purpose of worshiping the deity is to ultimately become the deity and then go beyond and then merge into nothingness. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is saying that this heathenistic theory, it has nothing to do, Vaishnavism has nothing to do with this philosophy that you simply imagine a form of the Lord. the henotheists. Did I say heathens or henotheists? I'm sorry. Henotheists. Okay. The henotheists, actually, before we begin, if you look down here, we have some pictorials here. First of all, henotheists worship a single God while accepting the existence of other deities that also must be worshipped. So, like demigod worshippers. Henotheists. Sorry if I stumble on these words. I'm just not trained in philosophy. So, and then they have the theosophists, which are religionists who have a philosophy. They try and blend everything together, it comes from a blending of Greek philosophy, mostly Platonic. Plotinus was a impersonalist, and ideas about the universe and the Hindu religion, or Vedantist religion. They've hijacked the term Vedantas, about the impersonality of the Lord and the soul ultimately merging into nothingness. So, theosophists and henotheists. So the henotheists do not admit the transcendental personality of Godhead. The sect of figurative analogists, like the theosophists, are not real theists, cherishing as they do doubt against the personality of God, and for that reason they want to curtail God's omnipotentiality and his transcendental names, appearances, attributes, sports, by means of allegorical descriptions. Okay, next. Let's see what the time is. 15 minutes to go. So here we have a lot of pictures. Let's just go through these really quick. Now he's going to mention the conception of the barbarian gods, the idolatry propounded by the Mayavadis, which is you can worship anyone and everyone, the allegorical descriptions of the psychics, of gods, anthropomorphism, which give human qualities to divinity, the therianthropists, which combine God with human and animal forms, and the apotheists. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing any of these. Those they elevate man, just like just like in Japan, they worship the emperor in World War II as divinity. So, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says to this scholar, remember, this is a conversation. He's just saying this. It's such deep philosophy, just like a poet. The Vaishnava philosophy, or that of the ever-existent religion of India, has never sported the atheistic doctrines of such professors of imaginary form of Brahman, or figurative analogists. It is about the doctrine of pure and real avatarvada, or the cult of incarnation, that the philosophy of the ever-existing Indian religion has said. As the pure and real doctrines of avatar, fish, turtle, etc., of the Vaishnavas are not a kind of imagination of the barbarian taste, nor the idolatry of the Mayavadins on the basis of their aphorisms of forms of Brahman, imagined for the convenience of participants, nor the allegorical description of the psychics. So, it is not the anthropomorphism, representation of the deity as having human form, as devised by the so-called civilized section of people, nor the therianthropists, representation of one's tutory, combine man and beast form. Tutory means like a guardian or protector. Not even the apotheists elevating man to the dignity of deities. Again, forgive me, Prabhu's, if I'm mispronouncing or stumbling over these words. I'm just, this is above my pay grade, definitely. So, here we have two terms we should be familiar with. Anthropomorphism, which is the assignment of human shape, the attributes of God, so those are the Greek and the Roman gods, and then therianthropism, which is deities having partially animal and partially human forms. Here we see these are the Egyptian gods. So these are respective types of idolatry of the mental speculationists of the inductive school. In imitation of Mayavad, the evil fruit of Indian civilization, anthropomorphism was invented in Greece and Rome, and therianthropism in Egypt, etc. When the new doctrines got access in those countries, along with the commodities produced of the Indian civilization, which are based on the imagination of anthropophytes, like the Indian Mayavadins, who exalted men or beasts to the status of God with the attribution of divinity, to them calling jivas and the poor as Narayana, with gratification of the senses in the background. Then the mental speculations of those respective countries adopted the cheap vitiate, how do you pronounce this? It means to spoil. Spoiled Indian dogmas and labeled many names on them, passing these doctrine commodities into the form of religious tenets. But the true Vaishnava philosophy of India never indulged in such doctrine based on imagination. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has refuted such imaginative doctrines and idolatries as rejecting both anthropomorphism and therianthropomorphism. He vouchsafed, that means like graciously condescended his teachings, the Shastric teachings, that he must be a heretic and sinner who looks upon God, Narayana, as equal to deities like Brahma, etc. We have about 3 more pages we're going to read. Okay. Anthropomorphism, representations of the deity with human form and attributes, resembles the tenets of the Bals of Bengal, attributing divinity to the head of their sect, professing as they do, though wrongly, to have perceptually descended from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Such tenets are the mental imaginations of atheists like the Bodhas and the Bals, as above, running contrary to the teachings of Sri Buddha, Vishnu, and Sri Chaitanya Vishnu, respectively. So these are evidently different sects that were prevalent in the time of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, bogus sects, claiming to have descended from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The Mayavadi sect, too, has adopted similar principles. The really scientific philosophy of Srimad Bhagavatam and the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Dev have, of course, accepted the human body of the divine manifestation. But that human body is not a creation of anthropomorphism, nor of the Bald doctrine, but is the eternal, transcendental Satchidananda body, the cause of all causes, the highest sportive entity. When the human soul can acquire the wealth of all sciences in perfection, then only is open the door of the foremost mystery of true science. According to the Vaishnava philosophy, the sportive manifestation of God is of 2 kinds. One kind is a creation of the material and spiritual universe, and its systematization of inviolable rules. So in other words, a cosmic manifestation. The school of intelligent empiricists can, to a certain extent, experience this type of God's sportive manifestation. In other words, a personal realization. The second kind is the descent of God's transcendental sport in this created universe. It is the jivas who are the attendants of his sport. They become attracted to matter, having deviated from their own essential nature as a result of their desire for enjoyment. Just to give you an idea, we have 2 more slides. But when again the soul or the jiva gains true wisdom of the transcendental region of God at the feet of the representative of his, the true devotee, he begins to get back his pure, essential nature gradually unfolded, and God's transcendental eternal form appears as the object of his worship according to the comprehension of his service and his graded evolution of acceptance of his projection, self-surrendered or theism. So in such a case, there remains no room, even in the slightest degree, for any form of imaginative doctrines of the so-called civilized or uncivilized human minds, whether apotheistic, anthropomorphic, henotheistic, therosophic, theromorphic, or therianthropic. Okay. The real, eternal, and transcendental divine forms reveal themselves in the pure souls according to the nature of their serving mood and the evolutionary growth there. The only cause of these divine descents is the intense mercy of God towards the jivas. In Europe, the theories of physical evolution of Darwin and Lamarck have been considered, but in the Vaishnava philosophy alone, that we see the fully scientific and real conception of each eternal and transcendental divine form for worship by the freed souls according to their evolutionary growth of serving mood. So, and this is how Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur would also preach, because very prevalent in India at the time was the doctrine presented by Darwin and others. So taking off from that, we're saying that the real evolution is that of the worship of the soul, the jiva, towards the personality of Godhead, and according to his spiritual evolution, he worships different forms of the Lord. So, 2 more slides. We can notice the different stages of animal life from the invertebrates to the fully grown human being. These stages have been classified by the Indian sages of a scientific outlook in 10 orders. That is, 1, the invertebrate; 2, the testaceous or shelly; 3, vertebrate; 4, erectivertebrate, as in the combined form of man and beast; 5, mannequin; 6, barbaric; 7, civilized; 8, wise; 9, ultra-wise; and 10, destructive. These are the historical stages of jivas. I assume number 10, when it says destructive, that means, in other words, to get rid of the material tabernacle. So according to the gradation of these stages as indications of the evolution of the serving mood of the jiva soul, there are manifested 10 incarnations of God. Isn't this amazing? Now that's how to really preach, put things in such a way that people can relate to it, according to time and circumstance. So, 10 incarnations of God, that is Matsya, the fish; Kurma, turtle; Varaha, boar; Nrsimha, man, lion; Vamana, dwarf; Parshuram, Rama, Krishna, Buddha, and Kalki, as worshipable deities with eternal transcendental names, forms, attributes, and sports. Those who have acquired a true knowledge about incarnations with the thorough culture thereof will be able, with the grace of the philosophers trained in the school of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to appreciate the ontology of Sri Krishna, specifically the intense sweetness of his sports at Braja, that is Vrindavan and the neighborhood. So now we have the last slide. So, Dr. Sutter, I have just listened to many subtle truths in the science and philosophy of religion. Please let me have a conception of these intricate matters. And concluding, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says, this is not the conclusion of the conversation that goes on, but we'll be here till noon trying to read and go through it. So this, he answers this question. The essential principle of Vaishnavism is that howsoever great a scholar or an intellectual giant a man may be, he will not be able to appreciate even the easiest points of the Vaishnava philosophy until and unless he has eternally surrendered himself to the Acharya, whose character is the embodiment of the Vaishnava philosophy. You must have heard about the Indian scripture named Gita, which has been translated into different languages in the civilized world. There is a sloka in it which says that the Vaishnava philosophy is understandable only with unconditional surrender, honest inquiry, and serving temperament. It is only to such an approach the professors of Vaishnava philosophy, with these three as the preceptoral fee, that they give instructions about the correct philosophical truths. These professors are never to be tempted by any type of worldly things. With that, I am going to stop, and I am going to unmute everybody and ask if anyone would like to add anything to this absolutely amazing conversation with this professor. It is 7 o'clock. Is everybody there, or is everybody just speechless?
Speechless. Way over my head.
I tried to put those visuals in there to try and help a little bit with what was being said, but I'm just amazed. Can you imagine the depth of his spiritual intelligence? I mean, who can even write like that? You know, and ponder such things. You know, even you know, amongst the devotees, if you're trying to sit down and write an article like that, you could never do it. And he was just speaking like this to this scholar.
So he spoke in Hindi, and someone translated this into English?
No, he's speaking in English, in perfect English,
okay.
Better than any of us. You know, we need some of the words he's using are not even to be found anymore.
Do you think this professor actually understood, or he was just so overwhelmed by Bhaktisiddhanta's brilliance that he just kind of accepted, so kind of, for, you know, in modern terms, kind of blown away by his language, that he just accepted, I guess he's right, but I can only understand the tiny little fraction of what was read today. It was way, way over my head. Does anybody feel like me, or somebody?
Well, I tell you, if by reading through the rest of this dialogue, you really see some genuine appreciation and understanding. You know, you really open his eyes. Whether he can understand everything, I don't think so, because Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is saying here that you have to, you know, be a surrendered soul. You have to surrender to the feet of the Acharya before you're going to be able to understand these things. But at least to some degree, he understood what he was saying, you know, and got some real appreciation for.
We have some, you know, theoretically some qualification to hear, and that I assume most of us here in the Sangha are, you know, have been around for several decades at least, and are regularly chanting and hearing, and still where we're at today, what to speak of this professor who was just, perhaps there's some piety there, but hasn't undergone all the sadhana that we've done for many years to prepare us to hear. I still can't understand it. It's just way over my head.
Yeah, that was.
We're so fortunate Prabhupada took this and wrote it so that we could understand it. Prabhupada made this understandable, and therefore we can understand why Prabhupada became disturbed when devotees were trying to read Bhaktisiddhanta's books, and Prabhupada said, you cannot jump over the head of the acharya. You cannot jump over the head of your spiritual master. And Prabhupada said, I could barely understand. How will you understand? Anyway, it was very purifying to hear it, but I didn't understand a lot.
Yeah, this is amazing conversation. To take someone like this and have him absolutely floored and submissive, it shows the potency of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta.
This morning they were mentioning that Bhaktisiddhanta, when he was just in elementary school, Bhaktivinoda Thakur sent him to the best schools there were, and the best schools were always the ones that spoke English. So he had learned English his whole life. He didn't just learn it for one little short period of time in a room by himself with some books. He was sent to the best schools, which at that time were the British schools, and the British schools, naturally, they would teach English. So he had a very good elementary, or his whole education was always top-notch. And that English is also it's an older English than we're used to, too, and a more formal English. And also in that book that Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhava, it explains how Bhaktisiddhanta actually gave definitions for words that were never used that way before. And after that, the language was changed. The whole language was elevated by the way he spoke and the way he used words.
Wow.
Well, we can see that Prabhupada was saying the same thing, just like that last sentence, that they wouldn't take money for being professors, where Prabhupada would always talk about the professional Bhagavat reciters that were being paid. So you can see how Prabhupada understood it, and that's what purports mean, is you take one culture, and Prabhupada would call it Bhava Artha, translations. As he says, you know what he's trying to say, you understand it, and then you put it in your own words without losing the intention of the speaker and the point. We're very fortunate.
Yeah.
What were some of the other highlights you heard this morning, Madan? What stuck out in your class in Alachua? What were the highlights? You said it was really incredible. I mean, this was incredible. What was the highlights of what you heard?
Well, we had a slideshow also. That book, Bhakti Prakash Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhava, is evidently it's on Kindle, and the person who gave the class is good at that, so he put it on the computer and then put it up on the screen, so we had the slideshow from that, and he would just go through Bhaktisiddhanta's life. But I'm not good at recall. It was recorded. It was definitely recorded, so it is worthwhile going there. Probably by the end of the day, it'll be up on the Alachua website, and you could download it yourself.
They do it like nicely like Ramananda does it, where you can see the slide and also hear the class?
No, we just record the audio. We don't record the the video. But the video basically, it wasn't just like, it would have been nice to have that control, but Monoram doesn't give us control over the camera. So the camera's on it's called a tour, and it just goes around the room constantly, stopping at the different schedules, locations. Previously, about 5 years ago, we used to be able to have control of the camera, take it off its tour, and then we would have been able to focus it onto the slideshow. But you need a person to do that, and he has it all set up automatically.
Ramanandaji, where did you find this enlightening conversation?
I read it in, I think, BTG years and years ago, and then Pushkar Prabhu sent it to me again. So I did some research on it. It's I think it's in Ray of Viṣṇu as well, and you can find it online.
It definitely helped how you presented it. It was still over my head, but it was very helpful how you broke it up and made these little charts.
I wish Pushkar would have given class today, because he would have done a splendid job. But anyway.
Which point in Nahari did you feel was way over your head?
Everything.
That's,
I mean, I was standing. I couldn't sit down. I stood up the whole class, and was just listening, so I wouldn't. I can concentrate better when it's hard to understand if I stand up. So I just stood up and I just read along as Ramananda went through it. It was all hard to understand. I couldn't understand the language was tough. There were words I weren't familiar with, and it was difficult.
Well, that makes me feel better, because I don't feel like I'm the only one.
Well, one advantage of having it on the screen is if I just click on one of the words, my dictionary opens up, so I have to read along as I'm most of the words were in the dictionary. So, like ontology, you know what an ontology is? A rigorous and exhaustive organization of some knowledge domain that is usually hypothetical or contains all the relevant entities and their relations. The metaphysical, or two, maybe this one's a little easier, the metaphysical study of nature, of being and existence. I think that's one we generally use. Metaphysical study of the nature of being and existence.
Prabhu's, don't forget today is a half-day fast. Is that correct? Half-day fast.
Yes.
Hare Krishna, Ramananda Prabhu. I was just looking through Ray of Viṣṇu, and I was wondering, is this conversation in one of the appendices, or is it in the Leela section? Do you know?
I don't know. It's in there somewhere. I don't know if the whole thing is there. I just glanced at it. I pulled this off the internet. Pushkar sent it to me, and then I pulled this off the internet. It's in various places, but I know it's in there someplace, at least partially. I just can't. I just did do a search, and it pulls up, so I can't. I don't use books. I use everything online. You got to forgive me. I'm kind of lazy and just rely on searches. But it's definitely in there someplace. Okay, Prabhus, we are over today on this auspicious day. So thank you so much for giving your kind attention. And we'll see everybody tomorrow here for Narahari Prabhu's class. All right. All glory.
Thank you, Ramanandaji. Thank you all.
You're welcome. Hare Krishna. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai.
Ki jai. Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.